All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February ECEF webinar. I'm happy that you could be here today and yeah, looking forward to connecting with you all. We do have an interpreter on the Spanish language channel, and so if you would like to listen to the interpretation in Spanish for the webinar, please click on the Spanish channel. It can be a little tricky to find, so let me know if you have difficulty finding that. All right, so with that, we will get started. All right, so wanted to go over the agenda today. So the first few minutes is always just people coming in and giving a little welcome. Then we will do a little, have a little discussion about current events, and then introducing a little time slot called grantee time that will be a part of webinars moving forward, as long as it gets positive feedback and it works for all of you, kind of testing it out. And then we'll have a fiscal check-in, and then the evaluation team, Alexis and Lorelai, will be taking the meeting over at 11:30. And then at 12 to 12:15, typically we have time for you to stay to ask questions. Brandon and I won't be here for the second half of the meeting, so we won't be there to answer questions. But if you have questions for Lorelai and Alexis, and you could stay and ask questions during that time, or they might run over a little bit. So that is our agenda for today. All right, this is just a reminder to sign in, and Brandon is putting the link in the chat. All right, so wanted to start off by recognizing that February is Black History Month. And yeah, I wanted to highlight that while learning about Black history isn't limited to the month of February, Black History Month is really a great opportunity to celebrate the achievements of Black individuals throughout history, and celebrate their diverse contributions to culture, science, art, politics, and society overall, and so much more than that. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to give that acknowledgement, and was curious if to hear from all of you if there were any events in celebration of Black History Month taking place in your community this month, or if any of you might be hosting an event for families or community. I will pause for just a moment. And you could put something in the chat or come off mute if you know of anything that you'd like to share, or if you just want to share a comment.
I will share that at Kairos PDX, there's a strong feeling that Black history is year round, year round, and needs to be celebrated every single day. And so we had a gathering for MLK Day, and we have a big HBCU gathering at the end of the month, but they're not particular to Black History Month because at Kairos it's every day of the year. So I'm just sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree. It's the month serves as a great kind of reminder that it can be celebrated all year round. But it's nice to have like a marked time frame where it's kind of coming to the forefront.
Yeah, I love that,
Brandon.
Allison. I was just gonna say one of my favorite ways to like view all of like the culturally specific stuff that happens throughout the year to like really highlight. One of my favorite mentors that I was under came up with the catchphrase of educate, don't decorate. And so really actually like if you're going to be like showing off and like educating the public, like actual information and not just like this placated version of,
Mhm.
hey, it's Black History Month. Okay, now March. Uh, because there's so much rich history that like that's entwined not just in like the early learning scene, but throughout literally everywhere in
Mm.
history. So that I think is like a vital thing. So I love that
It's a
Kairos
great
PDX does.
saying. I'll probably quote it.
Oh, please do. I love it. I wish it would take off. So please steal. I'm a big fan of doing less work if it's already been created, so take it.
Thanks, Brandon. Would anyone else like to come off mute and share anything? All right. And I just wanted to read the quote that is on the image on this slide. The progress of the world will call for the best that all of us have to give. Um, I just really, I like that quote a lot, and it's one that I hadn't actually heard before. So yeah, thank you all for being here and doing the important work that each of you do. All right. So the next slide, I um, wanted to cover basically because I know that due to kind of current events, there's been a lot of fear and unrest that many people are experiencing, especially surrounding immigration and the immigrant and refugee communities in the United States right now. Um, and I imagine that many of you are fielding questions, receiving questions and concerns from community members that you work with and serve, and that possibly due to safety concerns, you might be seeing or anticipating drops or decreases in families that are comfortable attending your programs. And so I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge what was happening and what is, up and what many people are feeling right now, and the increase kind of inter challenging interactions with communities that you serve and additional support that's needed. Um, so, uh, yeah, and I wanted to highlight also that if you do experience a decrease in attendance, just feel free to highlight that in the narrative in your report and connect with us if you have concerns or you want to check in about it or possibly shift a way that you're administering a certain program to adapt to the shifting needs of the communities that you serve. Um, we also have a communication from Delk that I wanted to forward out to all of you. And so I'll be forwarding that on after our webinar today. And it's regarding Oregon sanctuary laws and early learning resources and has some links in there. Um, so yeah, without going into a lot of detail, I just wanted to kind of cover that area, make sure that you know that we are aware and thinking of the impact that this has on all of you and on the communities that you're working with. And yeah, we are here to support however we can. And thank you for continuing to do all the amazing work that you're doing with families and young ones in Oregon. All right. Wanted to then transition to so in an email yesterday, I highlighted a new idea that we had to build in 10 or 15 minutes, depending, if there's less people who have things to share or that want to take up any time, it can be shortened. It's a flexible amount of time. But we want to make sure that there is like regular intentional time for grantees to be able to share anything that's current, give updates, share resources with one another, and even conduct program outreach if you have a program starting in an area that others might have families in the area for. It's always helpful with folks doing similar work to be able to spread the word um, through each other. And yeah, and also to pose questions if you have like something you're trying to figure out or and want feedback on how another agency might do it. It's a good opportunity to just ask questions. And so the idea, it's going to be called Grantee Time. If someone has an idea for another name that's more catchy, let me know. But yeah, I just wanted to create, I know it's a short period of time and it can be longer depending on what else is on the agenda, but I wanted to have just dedicated time where the ball was really in your court to be able to share in an unstructured way, like no signing up ahead of time. You're not doing a presentation. It's just space for you. Yeah, in a big group to be able to bring whatever you would like to the forefront. With the focus on kind of cross collaboration. So yeah,
Quick
I'm
question,
curious. Yep.
Emma, sorry. Are we recording this part or are we not recording this part?
I didn't plan to stop recording, but I could pause recording during that time period.
Okay.
I think, yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about like super sensitive things coming up. It's not a time where we would pop out of the meeting or anything either. Like we would be here and no breakout rooms, just kind of like yeah, it is time to ask questions of us, but the focus is more on like cross collaboration between agencies. So hopefully that makes sense. And if there is something that you're like, I want to share something, but I'm not comfortable having it be recorded, I can just hit the pause button. So, and then start recording again. I think that would be totally fine. I think unless someone expressed um, that they weren't comfortable having that piece recorded, we would probably keep recording because there might be some information shared that folks who missed the webinar would want to hear when they watch the recording, if that makes sense, and if there's outreach and that kind of thing happening. Is there a follow-up question to that? I hope that works for everyone. I'm happy to pause it when and if there's a sensitive topic that comes up. Okay, any other questions? And also, is there anything that anyone would like to share, pose a question to other grantees, or um, this is like a trial run of that time period. And next time, like, we might not have anything this time, since it's the first time starting with it, and I'm not sure that all of you were able to read the email beforehand. So yeah, I'm just gonna
Jump
pause.
in, Emma. We're happy to jump in if you want that now.
Awesome. Yeah.
So South Lane has been working with other school districts across Lane County to refine, develop a family preparedness packet for immigrant families in particular to help them prepare papers, everything down to car keys and codes and things like that. And most school districts across our county have participated at one time or another in the task force. It meets every week. Subtle is the name of the game. Everything is being done just so as not to alarm or call attention to the families unnecessarily, but to give them information. And then in our case, we would help families then assemble what is in the packet. It was just finalized last week, distributed. There was a train the trainers. I know other districts from around the state participated in that. Eugene District 4J led the training and really has led the efforts, making sure everything has gone through their legal team, et cetera. So those packets are being distributed to families. And then again, our team here is prepared to help families with questions, anything that may need to be notarized. Some districts have gone, including ours, have had staff do some training to become notary publics with the DOJ. So these are just ideas as we're all facing a lot of fear, trepidation, and unknown regarding our immigrant families. These are things that we can do in real time that help them prepare should something happen. So
Thank you, Heather. Is there anything that you would like me to send out to other ECEF grantees regarding what you just shared?
I think the packet has been, it's in English and Spanish, and I believe it's been shared when requested. Again, this is just something developed in Lane, but I know that COSA was on the call. I think there were other entities. So I'm happy to share that packet if that would be helpful to others. There's many versions, I think, with other outside community orgs. What we like about this one is it's looking through the family lens and based on past experiences that districts faced when there were, deportations in the past and things that they weren't prepared for or families weren't prepared for. So it was well vetted by district employees across our county and advocates, particularly from the Latinx community. So I feel really confident in this packet.
Yeah.
Sarah and I both participated giving input. So I would happily share that.
Great. Okay. Would you be open to putting your email in the chat for
Sure.
folks to
Absolutely.
email you if
I'll
they
put
would
both of
they're
ours in.
interested?
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, feel free to reach out.
This is also a good time for me to mention that I will happily forward on communications if you have information you want to share with other grantees and it's like something that could be shared over email in addition to or instead of being talked about at a webinar. There's a resource or outreach materials, you can forward that to me, and then I can include that in communications with everyone. And I think that's one thing that's been a bummer about not having access to a Google workspace because I haven't figured out a good solution to having like a shared space where I can, like we could have a document where grantees can add things that then everyone can see. So that's something I'm still wondering about what alternatives there could be, because I know that used to be a thing for other programs to be able to do. I'm not sure if that was done with ECEF previously, but we no longer have access to Google accounts. So, but I would love to have more of like a shared workspace where we can all contribute to it, different from the portal where things are just uploaded for you to access. So anyways, that's on my radar. Just wanted to share that piece. Anything else that anyone would like to share before we move on? And then again, we'll have this built in, dependent on how you all feel about how effective or useful that time is. I'll have it built into the beginning of each webinar moving forward.
Kamisha did put in the chat that Orchwell will be offering a number of great trainings and events coming up within the next few months and shared the link of those.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for doing that, Kamisha. And yeah, check out the chat for the link that she put in there. I appreciate that. All right. Anyone else before we move on? And in the future during this time as well, if you have something you would want to screen share, I believe I can allow guests in the meeting to screen share. I might have to make you co-host temporarily to do that, but I'm unsure. Or you could send me the info ahead of time, but I think it's easy enough to just share your screen if you have something you want to pull up. All right. Well, thank you for those that shared. And yeah, be thinking about, just to all of you, be thinking about if you have anything you'd want to bring to a meeting or questions kind of to brainstorm and pick other grantees' brains about different topics at the next webinar in March. So with that, I will
I
pass
wanted
it.
to share.
Oh, yes.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I'm like, maybe I should. So, I've been working pretty closely with the Portland Public School elementary, Northeast, North Portland in particular. And one thing that I found pretty interesting with all the budget cuts that are getting ready to happen is that the elementary schools are looking for a lot of support in the classroom.
Mm,
This is rare. When your
yeah.
kids get to middle school and high school, you can't just drop in like you used to. You have to
Yeah.
have approval, 24-hour, 48-hour notice. And so I just think that it's really a great opportunity for parents to kind of start leaning towards as their kids are going to kindergarten, um, just being encouraged to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's little things like cutting paper, you can take it home. Like I just have never seen elementary school so desperate for parent engagement and just really the teachers needing support from the parents. So I just wanted to share that, and I think it's a great opportunity to get involved too. Like I said, when the kids get older, it's completely different. But being that they're younger and they're seeking help, it's nice to kind of encourage parents to get involved early. And then also, I wanted to mention that because the policies have now changed, the immunization records are required heavily.
Mm,
They now have deadlines. If you don't get them done, your child cannot go to school. There's a waiting period. And so it's just something to kind of, as we're helping families get ready to transition into kindergarten, it's really important to know.
mm-hmm. Thank you, Mignana.
Mhm.
You know, when I was working at an elementary school, there was a big lack of volunteer presence and always a need for that, especially in the younger grades. And so, yeah, thank you for highlighting that and especially due to budget cuts, that it's even more important those who are able to be involved to take advantage of that time. Zakia.
Just wanted to piggyback off of that, especially around the immunizations, because I
Mm-hmm.
know sometimes some parents can choose to have their children on an alternative schedule versus allowing them to shoot my kid with 4 different shots on a day. You
Yeah.
only can do one, so therefore you're going to be behind all the
Mm-hmm.
everyone else. And because I'm one of those parents, and so what I share with my parents is to go on and do the exemption for all the shots, and that way you can take the shots on your schedule that you have for your
Mm-hmm.
children, and the children will still be able to attend.
Yeah, thank you for that, Zakia. Um, it's important to know about the what the process looks like and what the exemption possibilities are. I know I saw some of that at the school I worked at as well, and a lot of families didn't know about it until we reached out. So I also want to highlight the importance of registering early because I saw that, you know, it was hard for schools to prep adequately when, you know, they'd start splitting up the classes and it shows very few students. And so they think they need less support staff. And then at the last minute, there's an influx of families registering and it's a surprise for the school and districts don't move very quickly, as we know. So, yeah, I think you all likely do work supporting the transition into kindergarten, and a lot of times that involves connecting to like kindergarten events that might be happening in the spring that encourage earlier registration and connect to staff at the schools. So just want to highlight how important I noticed that was when I was in the schools myself. All right, thank you for all that great sharing. I need to move us along because I'm about to cut into the evaluation team's time. Okay. All right. Passing it to you, Brandon.
Awesome. Hey, y'all. Okay, so I've got some quick fiscal updates. Okay, you're already on the side. Perfect. So ECEF funds, I just want to reiterate, all of the funding that ECEF has comes from the state of Oregon and the taxpayer through business and personal tax, so that there's no federal funds associated with them. So what that means for every one of y'all is that you will continue to have full access to your funds within the scope of your grant agreements, regardless of anything that is happening on the federal level with grants. And on that note, Delk and both state and Delk leadership have released statements and are continuing to actively monitor the situation at the federal level and will continue to excuse me, rewind, continue to provide insights as needed. Go ahead and hit the next slide for me. This one is not so fun, so I apologize a little. We are coming to the end of our grant cycle. So in compliance with your grant agreements, I know we've been a little bit lenient on if you're running late with a couple items, kind of approving claims, but as we get to the end of the year, uh, I've been instructed that we really kind of need to hold firm to the grant agreement. So if you're missing anything, it will be denied. And all that means for you is it would get denied, and then you would submit those forms, and then it would get, then you could resubmit your claim. And also in compliance with the grant agreement, grantees who have not scheduled or responded to their emails for their monthly meetings will have claims denied. There's several of y'all who we have not had monthly meetings with, and we really need to have a meeting with you. So that way we can make sure that you're on track, there's no support that's needed, and all of that. And then I do this anyway, but just for full transparency, if your claim and your expenditure report and your claim and AMS don't match, I'll send back for modification. Uh, and I've reached out to several of you with prior things, and it's a simple process to get it corrected so we can get you your funds. And for the most part, most people have their meetings scheduled, so it's not a huge deal, but we do need to get those kind of on the books at least once or twice before the end of the biennium. And I think that's everything, Emma, yeah, for the meetings.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight if you're not regularly meeting with us, a great way to set up an initial meeting is to use the link in my email signature that says click here to schedule a meeting, or use the bookings link at the top of the ECEF portal where it says click here to schedule a meeting. And that automatically checks against our schedules. You can click on just a meeting with me or with Brandon and I, and ideally it would be the one with Brandon and I. And it will only show you available times that we both match up on our calendars, and that makes it easier so we're not having to like it can be tedious to schedule over email, sending back and forth times that are available. So I encourage you to use that link on the portal, and the link in my email signature also takes you there as well. So yeah, we would love to be meeting with all of you regularly. It's important just so that we're on the same page, and it gives great opportunity for you to be able to ask questions on things that you might not feel comfortable sharing in a webinar setting. And just for us to get to know you better and have more insight into each of your programs. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's all of my slides. Hit next, I think so.
All right. So that is the end of our part of today's webinar, and I will be passing it now to Lorelei and Alexis, and I will stop recording here. Let's see, Lorelei, that's correct, right?
You could keep recording. It's really just the
Keep recording?
discussion portion.
Okay. I think, do you see the host controls just before I go log off? Do you see the controls in order to stop recording yourself? Or do I need to make you actual host?
Yes, I see the controls.
You can do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I will stop sharing my screen and I'll go ahead and hop off. Thank you everyone for coming and enjoy the rest of the meeting and the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. There we go. Hi everyone. Alexis Norlai here from the PSU evaluation team, and we're going to be talking about the preliminary things that we heard from you all about the ECEF at our last grantee webinar, where we held a listening session about how the evaluation year went for you all. So just a reminder of the process and how we gathered the data. In November, we held a breakout rooms where we had listening sessions and questions for you all to reflect on. We then looked across everything you all shared and identified what seemed like common themes that came out from each of the breakout rooms. And today we're going to be sharing back with you all to see if these themes resonate, if they sound correct to you all, and then if there is anything that might need to be corrected and or added. So starting with successes here on the feedback we received on the administration of ECEF. One of the first successes we heard was the flexibility of ECEF funding and how it allows for responsiveness to the communities that you all serve. So we heard that it empowers grantees to ask families what they truly need rather than imposing predetermined services. And it allows for programs to fill in gaps and address barriers created by other more restrictive funding sources and to serve families who might not meet eligibility in other programs. We also heard the consistency of ECEF has helped support stability and growth, and that knowing that ECEF funding renews every biennium has allowed programs to stabilize and focus more energies on program development and growth. So looking at some more successes that we heard from you all, we heard that ECEF funding supports community building and that it helps strengthen communities and build trust by providing spaces in which families feel understood, supported, and can communicate in their native languages. We also heard that ECEF funding supports staff development and that it supported, professional development in all of your programs. We also heard that grantees were able to provide valuable learning opportunities to their employees and community members, preparing them for professional pathways like becoming teachers. I have 3 quotes here that we took out from the breakout room that I wanted to share with you all. I'll just read 2 of them here. I really love how ECEF has been able to not only bridge those gaps, but you have to move everyone here. But it really leaves it to the communities to decide what services they want and get. And, rather than us always telling them what they need. So I really appreciate that. The last quote on the page here, success and opportunities for continual professional growth and development. I think that's been one of the biggest successes this year as well. And being able to continue supporting our own internal employees and having opportunities for them to continue learning and growing. Okay. So then now we have a few things related to challenges that you all shared with us in terms of ECEF administration. We have the first theme being funding and growth limitations. So although ECEF initially supported program capacity and growth, many programs are now reaching a kind of ceiling where some programs have had to slow their expansion or even scale back services due to stagnant ECEF funding and rising costs. We've even heard that some programs have had to implement waitlists, cut services, and or seek supplemental funding and resources for their programs. And we also heard around issues of inflexibilities. So while grantees did say that ECEF is one of the more flexible funding sources, that there remain some built-in inflexibilities, particularly regarding essential client assistance dollars, transportation costs, and food costs. So I'm now going to pass it on to Lorelei to discuss a little bit more of the themes that we heard.
Thanks, Alexis. So continuing with some of the challenges that you all shared, some of you talked again about ongoing challenges with attracting and retaining staff, which is something that we have heard consistently, as I'm sure you all remember well, from the very beginning of the fund. And again, one of the things that you all talked about was this continuing struggle with low wages and these funding uncertainties from year to year. So we're going to definitely plan on flagging that again in this final report as something that programs are continuing to have to struggle with. You also shared some challenges with the recent changes to the monthly data reporting, though it sounded like you've ended up actually appreciating the changes to the portal and the process once the kind of initial bumps were worked out. But still, many of you shared that you would appreciate simplified reporting requirements. And again, this is something that we heard the very first year of ECEF administration. And we know that it continues to be an ongoing challenge for folks, even as DELC is trying to make improvements to the system. So that's another finding that we will be elevating in the final report that gets shared with DELC and with the legislature at the end of this biennium. You also talked about feeling like sometimes there's a bit of a mismatch between DELC's reporting expectations and the more holistic ways that you go about delivering services. So that's another theme that we have heard consistently over the years that we will be bringing forward again. And next slide, please, Alexis. So again, just some quotes to share back with you in your own words, what you shared with us. And I won't read all three of these, but I thought that the first one was a really great example of the challenge that Alexis highlighted around this tension between program growth and the funding not quite keeping up with that growth, right? And this is the whole point of ECEF, is to try to encourage capacity building and program growth. But then it's kind of a dilemma when the funding itself doesn't quite keep pace with that. So here, the first quote here, because of the consistent growth in the last few years of the program, it's like it's stuck. The funding we're receiving is great, but now the cost of living has gone up, the amount of kids we're serving has gone up. A travel program used to only be in certain parts of Oregon, but now there's a full program in other parts of Oregon. So they're seeing increased costs in mileage, and additional cost to run the program has increased. So how do we keep a program that is growing sustainable? So we can keep maybe not growing it anymore, but just to sustain what is going on. And now the funding that we are receiving is not fully sustaining it. And it makes it difficult because there's always the uncertainty of, well, then that means certain services or supports or the community has to be cut off. So that's another major finding from the listening session that we plan to be elevating in that final report. Next slide. So in the listening session, as you might remember, we also asked you all for feedback on the support that you receive from the DELC program staff. In this case, it's program staff and fiscal. So many of you had really positive feedback for the program and fiscal staff, saying that you appreciated how available they were, how responsive they were when you reached out, and really genuine efforts to be helpful. So that was really great feedback. At the same time, we also heard from a lot of you that you've noticed that the DELC program and fiscal staff themselves seem kind of overburdened, like they have too much to do, and that they could use more internal support. So we think that's another really important message for us to elevate to DELC leadership. Overall suggestions for improvement in how the ECEF fund is administered by DELC included simplifying reporting requirements, providing more technical support around those reporting requirements, and simply getting to know the ECEF programs better. Many of you talked about how you thought some of these disconnects might be addressed if the DELC program and fiscal staff really got to know programs and had a better idea of how your programs work and what all you are really trying to do with children and families. Next slide. So last but certainly not least, as we've done every previous year, we also asked all of you to share about the big picture factors that are really affecting the children and families and staff across your programs this year. And so probably not a surprise to any of us, right? Many of you talked about the current political climate and economic uncertainty, and the change in administration really creating a sense of fear within the ECEF migrant communities. And many families are starting to become more hesitant to trust public services and maybe even a little uncertain about whether or not it's safe to come to your programs. Some grantees also talked about losing ECEF funding altogether due to the new administration and the change in priorities there. We also heard a lot from you about the lingering effects of COVID, ongoing impacts of the pandemic on children's social adjustment and the broader community. While at the same time, since COVID is over, crucial COVID related funding really drying up, and some of the flexibility that programs had during the pandemic starting to get walked back, making it harder to support families in the ways that are needed. Next slide. So a few other big picture issues that you all shared. Rising costs and increasing family needs. We all know that we're experiencing just an incredible rise in the cost of living here in Oregon that's going to affect particularly families with low wages, and that it's making it difficult for some families to maintain their participation in programs. Like they cannot leave work. They have to prioritize basic needs over what might seem like a luxury of taking time out of their workday to participate in programs. And then many of you also shared the influx in migrant and refugee communities due to the many wars and disruptions happening around the world right now. Got the Middle East, Haiti, Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. There are too many to list. So ECEF programs are continuing to receive more and more diverse and often traumatized children and families. So I think this also speaks to the issue that we talked about earlier around the funding not really quite keeping pace with the need. And then I'll just read one last quote here at the end. I know a couple of us have wondered what's going to happen to some of our families. Are they just going to stop responding to us? Are they going to pull their kids from our program because of trust issues and wanting to protect themselves? And how can we help that? How can we maybe preempt that having a piece of programming where you just come to play groups and we'll still have your materials? So you're not on our official rolls anymore, meaning that families wouldn't have to share their contact information and perhaps feel vulnerable doing that. Okay. Next slide, please. So those are kind of the high level themes that we pulled out of the listening sessions, everything that you shared with us. This is what we think we heard from all of you. And what we wanted to be sure to do is to circle back today and check in and say and ask you all, do these themes sound right to you? Is this what you were hoping to share? Hoping what we would hear and be able to elevate in the report? Is there anything that we missed? And is there anything that you would especially highlight as like the most important messages that we want to bring back to DELC and to the legislature when we put our final report together later this year. So with that, I would just sort of open it up to the group and see what folks might reflect.